Illuminating our hearts. This is a beautiful vision just to hold with the space of the words. And our guest today magnifies your experience just by being present in the room with her. Meilin Ehlke is known as a shamanic songstress and a woman who illuminates your heart. I first met Meilin on a call for entrepreneurs to gain connection, and her presence was inspiring through the computer screen, and our conversation transformed many aspects of my business just by meeting her for the first time. Sounds truly amazing, doesn't it? Well, let me tell you a little bit more about Meilin. Authors, artists, and enlightened entrepreneurs hire Meilin for the sound sorceress to blast away any obstacles to block the flow of creativity, hindrance for the connecting to all parts of themselves to then be catapulted into future endeavors, where they can walk calmly and confidently on the chosen path, voice the visions they are following, and be attracted to the desired clients who join them on the missions to better humanity and our beautiful planet. That's quite a mouthful, but an amazing statement. As a world-renowned artist, moderator, and healer, Meilin reaches a worldwide audience on her podcast, Moving to Oneness, and her blog radio show, Sacred Sound Surprises. For 8 years and over 400 episodes, amazing, yeah. Meilin has confidently led hundreds of thousands to reconnect to their wisdom, allowing her audience to embody themselves fully, wake up to what is possible, and then listen to their inner guidance. I don't think that we should wait any longer. You're listening to Be Well with Michelle Greenwell. This is Season 2, Episode 11, Illuminate Your Heart with Meilin Ehlke. Sorry, Meilin.
No worries.
So glad to have you here. Thank you for joining me.
Michelle, thank you. It's so much fun always to be in space with you. You create this the joy.
Oh, thank you.
In everyone, yeah, I've seen you also in groups, so you do that for others.
Thank you. So as we started already with the giggling and the pieces to get us going, we should probably start with our cup of motivation today, because I can see where the conversation is just going to take off. What have you brought to share with the audience today?
You mean as a tea when you said the cup? Tea. Yeah. So first of all, my favorite cup, I painted it myself a long time ago because I'm a big believer that we can code water and also the tea within codes. So I have a favorite tea of mine. It's green tea with the jasmine flower in it. The Chinese emperor drank that, and now we can all drink that. And it's a very neat. They roll them up in a little ball, and you just need to throw in one or two, and creates this beautiful, soft, gentle, for me, I love that, a taste that carries me through the moment I'm in. And yeah, I like this softness, and it fills me up. So the tea is my healing, and my cup and the water to you all.
Beautiful. Beautiful. I love it. So for those people that are listening to the podcast, Meilin was showing, she had a white cup with these tiny delicate strokes that she's painted on there, looking like flowers and pieces of leaves, etc., and but very delicate. So I chose my my train ride. So my Polar Express train ride that I got to do in December, where I got to go to the North Pole. And I chose this mug because it's all about believing. And I had on my bucket list was to be able to ride the real train that takes you to the North Pole. And I got to do that. And I got to ride it as a guest. But then also I was asked if I would come on and help serve cookies. And so I got to go to the North Pole twice. So I've got that one today because I think our conversation today is about believing and what is possible. And I was thinking about that potential. And inside I put a tea called Just Chillin', which is kind of a oxymoron because I've got it hot today, although it could be cold, but it has hints of cranberry in it. And it just has a little bit of a, I don't want to say bitter, but a little bit of a accent to it. So as you were describing softness, mine was like something that just kind of gives you that little perk up piece. So I say cheers to you, and thank you for joining me on the podcast today.
And cheers to everyone who's listening with a cup of tea in their hand.
Mm-hmm.
It's so funny, may I say something? Everyone, if you're sitting and listening, it fits. Mine is white and Michelle's cup is black. But the interesting, she is wearing black and I'm wearing a white. And when you were talking about the red accent of the cranberry, right, the very American plant, berry, very healthy. In your backdrop, you have white and black painted walls, I think, and there's this red light shining bright. I mean, it's the light is white, but it comes out of a red lamp. So it's really interesting how you are in tune with yourself. And I invite everyone to be that, to really go into the intuition of what is your medicine and to change it every moment and every day. So whatever you feel like. So maybe one moment you want it soft and gentle, the next time you want that little edge that Michelle has, and other times you just drink hot water or a strong brew of coffee. We really have the ability to choice every second we live.
That was beautifully said. And what you're describing as what's behind me, in my studio, I always have, there's certain paintings that appear on the screen for people so that I'm able to provide energy to them all the time. In my living room here, where I do the podcast from, everything that's behind me is hand selected and very specific for its reason for being there. And I enjoy that part when I set up for the podcast because everything I love is behind me. And it's so beautiful to structure things that way. And when people come into the house, the thing they say too is everything is strategically placed. It's not that my house is neat and tidy, because there are days that it's not, but every piece has been selected because it does have a meaning in some way or a purpose, and beyond a functional purpose. And we enjoy that about our house. So you're right. Creating that beautiful. Every day is such a beautiful way to start, and to know that you're supported all day.
Yeah, and I invite really anyone that is medicine for us. This is really the only medicine that counts in a way, because everything you touch, you sit on, you wear, has to invigorate you, has to support you. And if there's something in your house, take it out. And sometimes there may be objects that don't fit in the nerd, but they fit to you, and you know when you have it, when it will suddenly be there, when it for you to be supporting you. Yeah, so if you're very in tune with everything existing, and I speak a lot about oneness, Michelle, you know that, it really, right, everything is made out of beauty. And if you feel also the energy in the work a thing has been made out of, or that love a person put in creating, in designing, in picking the right material, the plants are a support, the lighting, I mean, everything. And it creates a richness. That's the word. It creates a richness in your world. And as you said, we never feel alone, Michelle. You're so right. We always feel then supported. And this is magic. This is it. Because when you feel supported and enveloped, you feel you have a little bit more surety in acting from yourself, from your own ideas. Then you're not worried the rest as you know is important for you. And by choosing, this is really a beautiful exercise to start following you, and also to take out or to cleanse a certain area in your home, in your studio. You have many dancers and also podcasters in your group, and artists, tea lovers, right? To go in on a regular basis. Does this still serve me? And you can speak to, let's take the tea again. Who of you, sometimes I covered, who is it today? It's fun. And they, one jumps out, maybe one who has been crammed all the way in the bag, and I go and get it because I know now it's important. And to go that extra mile, I think you say in English, this is important. And if I can encourage everyone who's listening, please start this year, or really now, to go that extra mile that gives you the extra comfort, the extra support, strength, power, and then momentum.
Beautiful. You're right. And then that momentum too is without effort. And that's what I think. And so I know for some people who think, oh, I've got to get all this stuff prepared. It's like, nope, just change the framework. And then everything else you do after that doesn't require the same effort in order to accomplish whatever the task happens to be. And you may have a project sitting on your desk that has to get done, but it's so much more delightful with a good cup of tea, maybe the right music in the background, maybe your favorite painting in front of you, and now you sit down to have an experience with that project rather than I have to get the project done. Yeah. Beautiful. So I wanted to bring forward, you were living in the United States for, you said, about 2 decades, and then you headed back to Germany again. So tell me, what was the drawing card that took you home?
So I'm half American, my dad's American, lives over here in Germany. And when I was 21, I wanted to get to know my other side, because, you hear my mom, I always said, my father is more open. He spoke to people at the streetlight, and it drove my mom nuts sometimes. So I thought, what is different about my dad? And so I thought, I want to experience it. So I went over to the US and studied their landscape architecture. And then in Georgia, and there I also did my state license. And while I was doing that, I met my now husband, a German man, my first German boyfriend. And we started a life, and my son was born there. And suddenly my husband wanted to go back, and there was a pool for him, and I didn't feel ready, because I'm very connected, right? I do sports, the arts, my photography, my painting, my landscape. So I was really intermingled, and my husband was more the engineer, totally always in his work in these projects. So the outer world wasn't really there for him. And so at the beginning, I had a little resistance, but then I met with a friend of mine. She was from Switzerland, but also had lived there 2 decades. And she said, Meilin, we're being pulled back. So this year, next year, and you got now to Germany. We are bringing back and connecting the new energies to from the US. The landscape has totally back to Germany. And I thought, super, not now, next year. And she was so right. And then I came back to Germany, and then from here started, and really brought also myself back together. So I had gone to the US to experience something else. So I had a lot of work of physical healing, learning a lot about started there, animals. And then when I came back studied here, then also funny with an American Shamanic chief and healer, medicine man, and brought again those 2 countries, continents together, and in a way bridging it and sharing the ideas.
Beautiful. So with the landscape architecture, has that had a huge influence on the healing work that you've been doing?
Yeah, it's always there, but it has been there for me since I'm a little girl. You should know, I climbed the fences, escaped from home. Um, they had to look for myself. And I'm like a dog. I had a husky once. We found once a husky and took care of him. But she was so different. You would go into the woods from her and you couldn't see her until you came out. And then she was right next to you again. And so I was in the same way. I never followed the path. I would run around off the path. Now I know I follow the energy lines like the animals do in the woods, right? Mm-hmm. And then later on too, I always go into the woods and build things, and so it became then really a natural thing. And when I was studying, I wanted to study veterinary medicine, and when I studied, I said, oh my God, I'm more in the biology classes, and I love more the natural thing. And then next to me were landscape architects, and I said, oh, I'm going to study that. And I combine it. I always use metaphors of growth of plant materials. I always live somewhere where trees, even when I have my podcast or now speaking, I look out the window and connect really quickly with the trees. I have this lovely yucca next to me that is, since I'm in this spot and she's supporting me, we're really growing both together. So the growth, expansion, and being in connection with nature has always been there, and it's part of me.
I have one of those plant machines that you can hook up to the plant and take the frequency from the plant and run it through a synthesizer, and then the plant can play music. And you can choose
I love that.
different sounds that you want to work with, or you want something a little bit more calmer, something a little bit more exciting. And my relationship with plants completely transformed with that machine, because I hadn't realized the song they were singing that as they were in the room with me, and how they were suspending some of my emotions, some of the ways I wanted to think about things. And in our Tai Chi practice, I would take the machine and hook it up to the same tree every week. And it would start really erratic as the group had come into the room. And then as we got into the Tai Chi sets and everything started to calm down, the playing of the plant completely transformed. And each set was different as well, which was interesting. So now when I have those plants in the room, I really pay attention to, my grandmother used to talk to the plants and she called them her little people. And now I do the same thing, because they're there, they're nurturing, they don't ask for much except a little water and some fertilizer. And in that, we have such incredible support every day.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and sometimes some touch, awareness. They do desire the awareness, like every one thing existing. We know that, right? In intelligence, the more you hug a child, the more you hug an animal, kisses. And even I've just listened to a woman from India yesterday. She said, when people have problems with bloating bellies or bellies extruding and belly fat, often we have not been hugged or do not hug anymore enough. And this is, I really believe, is a problem. The tactility, and that's maybe I was speaking so much about, that everything we wear, where we sit on, what we surround ourselves is nourishing, is enveloping us. And so that's one of my big desires, that we go back to being connected and not fear each other and each other's energy, the body, the sensation of touching. Yeah, so that's another pet peeve of mine. But also, you were asking me, I invite people to lean against a tree, right? So we can really feel the structure of a tree, but also notice how we can merge with the tree. How when we lean back and relax, how our particles move into the tree stem. and his particles, her particle, move into ours, and we have an exchange of wisdom. Or if you lie down on the grass, there is always an exchange. Yeah. And they understand, and we're all full body of also landscaping side. We have so many talents, we have so many interests, we had such life experience from the first moment on we are born, right? And so also to be able to look at those spaces and bringing them together is maybe a little bit like what I've learned in landscape architecture. What I loved about that field, it's infinite. It's, I think, the only field I've learned where you can integrate everything I was interested in. So it was the arts, engineering, architecture, psychological, animals, soils, art, you know, how do people move, and every person needs something else in the landscape to touch. Where do you sit down? How can you relax? How do you get people to move? How do you make people to slow down? Yeah, for example, if you think about Versailles, it has these huge fields, these wide paths, really soft, smooth paths, right? Texture on top. And they had these huge gowns, walking slowly and conversing and exchanging and playing. And then if you, for example, narrow a path, and you think about one in the woods where it goes maybe up and down and you have the roots coming off, and the landscape is tighter and it's a narrow, you start moving faster. So these things I integrate. Yeah, I can't separate. So it's because we are part of everything out there, and everything out there is part of us. We're in this beautiful song together. Symphony.
What a great way to start the day for those people listening on the podcast, you know, and you think about maybe when you got out of bed this morning, what you thought your day was going to be like. And now listening to the podcast, how you have transformed your day just by taking the time. It's just so rich and inspiring. And like we said, illuminating your heart, right? And bringing out that true passion from within. Yeah. Oh, it's beautiful. You mentioned your podcast. You have a podcast and a radio show. Do you want to talk a little bit about your background in that and where that's taken you?
Ooh. 2012 was a huge year for me, and really it started a little early. I many shamans found it, and one day the grandma of the Southern Hemisphere was there, Aunt May. She is from New Zealand, and I remember nothing got me really to shake, but when she showed up and did rituals without my whole body shake, I still remember 2 hours later I couldn't really hold a fork. And she was, and I was interested, and I also, because of her, I went on that adventure. I wanted to meet her, and she did on that weekend a certain something special. She really told us to go outside and pick and bring something in, and she would give us a reading, which she normally didn't do, but she felt she had to do it for that group. Now, yeah, I went outside and came back with a piece of moss, because I was sitting there and I said, what is it? And I looked at that moss and I had to touch it. And I loved that humid, it's like, it's not humid, it's not wet, I don't know, but moist, beautiful, living, and bright and deep. One of my favorite colors is this blue-green. And so I took that little piece along with on a piece of bark. Wow. Then she said, it's about beautiful. Sometimes you don't see yourself beauty, but beauty is important to you. And I said, how did she, no. And luckily, she was very smart. She told every neighbor where we're sitting next to write what she's going to talk about, so we could just soak it in and listen. And then she said, yeah, Meilin, your voice will do a lot for the world, and you'll sing, and it will be start like a little creek and then be like a water and huge stream. And I thought, singing, voice. I was painting at that time a lot, in galleries, and I thought, where does this come? I was thrown out of music class in high school. Happy at that time, not having to go to class for 2 years, because I didn't fit into what my music teacher envisioned what one should sing and talk like. But then 2012, a year later, I was suddenly somewhere and I started singing. Two people came who held my hand, and I started singing, and I move people into remembering who they are. Also sometimes dissolve blockages, whatever is holding them back to be fully themselves, to fully be connected to the cosmos, to the earth, and then within themselves, that these two energies can come and play within our body and create mushkiki, right? And we can send them out what our specific flavor is as these come together, and we give our wisdom to it, our knowledge, our interests, our love into the world. And then sometimes it just catapults people forward. It creates momentum, so people become who they are and are going to live in a way their future.
Wow. So when you approach your podcast, then you're pulling all those pieces in with each guest that you have on. Is that how you pull? I'm just like, do you use your voice also in there?
Yes, I've learned my voice just by speaking. I calm people, make them comfortable, open up so they can speak their truth. And even my people have said they really love it, because I see them when I interview. I don't even say interview, it's a conversation, Michelle, similar to what you do so beautifully. Because when two people come together, we're here to create. There's a reason why two people come together, even spend time together. We're creating something new at that moment. And so I always, invite people to go into their truth, into their own wisdom, and bring that out also on my podcast. So that creates magic. And yet somehow, I attract the singers, the songwriters, authors with rather spiritual of the world, and who have oneness in their core, in their vision for humanity and the world, our beautiful planet. But in my podcast, every second episode I do solo, and then there's always a song anchoring somehow what we've spoken about. Oh, and I say we, but because I have everyone in my field when I start speaking, and then it anchors it in. So there's often, maybe a few, there are no sounds, but I just love it. And I'm doing more and more now singing again. I had pulled back a little bit to be more of who I am, and now that's coming out really strong again.
Wow. I'm just thinking about what you said about creating that connection, and we go back to the start of the podcast with what's in the room with us. How do we cultivate it in the cup of tea? And then what you're talking about is when you exchange with another person, thinking about what is the healing potential that happens because of the way that you approach the exchange, and what is inspired or ignited within the two of you in that conversation. And I think that's what I love about living in Cape Breton, Nova Scotia. One of the pieces was when we first started coming here, you would drive down the road and everyone waved at you when you passed them. And we were not used to that, but then you had to move your hands on the steering wheel so your finger would be able to wave back, and to really be conscious about acknowledging that other driver. And that's what happens here. You go down the street and they call you by name. They look you in the eye. It's a different way of being present in the world and saying you make a difference in that other person's life just by the smile that you brought, or what words you describe when you support someone with what they're saying. And so I think that when we kind of get lost in the big world where lots of people are running by and everybody's in a rush and they're in their little headspace, and they tune out to those pieces. And it's so lovely to think all you have to do is change your perspective and look forward, look out, look bigger, look to the person. And I think people just really do forget that in their everyday interactions.
Yeah, but we have been taught for thousands of years, especially the Western culture. We can go back history. We're not going to go in that, but right.
Yeah.
And I was really beautiful to see, and also etiquette. I did mention Versailles, but it's really important. We were really taught not to feel, not to see, not to act the way by our clothing, the etiquette, the way we're tightened, especially women, not breathing. So we became really uncomfortable in showing who we are, our emotions, our way of thinking, right? Even how you eat. You can't even taste the food. You have to worry how you're observed, right? So you're not yourself. We were pushed, and then, I don't know, then everyone wanted to be this way. So luckily there's this unraveling, as luckily a lot of other cultures have stayed the way they are. We were talking about a bucket list. Early 22 January, I have a little booklet. I have it right here. No, that's another one. But it's a small little booklet, this big, and I wrote in 100 things I would love to do, whatever. And one of the things was Bali, and also then going to Luxor. And those two I did then in 22. And both times, one thing really came out. It is community. And what you experience in where is community. And I was lucky. I experienced a little bit when I lived up in the Alps as a young teenager, right? Where there are less people. We had to depend on each other to survive. People were there for each other and for comfort, because you otherwise would have to travel for ages by foot mainly, or by animals, and maybe half of the year you can't because there's so much snow. There's not so much snow nowadays anymore. But in both of those countries, in Egypt and there, I noticed, yes, maybe they don't have as much as we consider one should have, but they had community, or they have. And they're there for each other, and they take the time for beautiful daily things. And Bali, they make, every house has at least one temple, if not two, or let's call it an altar, and we can have altars here. Just a beautiful spot where maybe we put flowers, maybe something beautiful to drink, a beautiful vase, something that makes our heart smile and puts a smile on our face, right? Where we would, and puts us in a little mood. And so they had this flower, and they took the time, first of all, to prepare, and then as an offering. But they take care of each other, and they don't mind walking over to someone to talk a little bit with them, an elderly woman or a young child. And I noticed really how beautiful that was. And that's, I think, a little missing in our Western culture. Again, I think it was on purpose to pull us apart. I believe we're moving back into this at the moment. And maybe you were talking about Corona. It made us become again a little bit more comfortable with our own families. Yeah. You're really on a tight spot. Now, how do you live? You have to become yourself. You have to work with the energies of someone else, their body. You have maybe children that are really vibrant, and you had forgotten how to be really vibrant. It's going to trigger you. And so I think that's why it also maybe took so long. So we all could get close to our surrounding nature, to our surrounding family, and especially ourselves. And so this now, I think we're moving into a total different world. We'll see a lot of changes coming over the next 6-7 years. It will become much, maybe one more year, a little chaotic, but then it'll become more and more peaceful. And when I say peaceful, the peacefulness within ourselves, this calmness, but also of the landscapes, how we act with others, how we grow right into relationship with other human beings, in relationship with animals. You can see how our food industry is being asked to change. Ooh, I forgot to turn off the telephone.
We can't hear it.
Okay, good, perfect. And then also the change that comes from us, because we want to eat different. We want to demand more quality. That goes back when we were speaking before. What quality of tea? Maybe get a better tea that it enriches you, because you know it was picked different. It was not maybe done by machines. Maybe you even know the origin. Maybe even the valley. You maybe tea then you know what area it has been picked or made of. And that, I think, is important, because it connects us then to that landscape. It is not tea, but it connects us with the place where it comes from. And so many things that are put to our body, that it becomes more harmonious with us. And so a lot of change is, and then it'll create peace for the world.
When you're thinking about the tea, and I was just thinking about a friend of mine who was making, she had made the tea into different things for each course of the meal when she had a guest over that had some special food requirements. And one of the things she had done is she had made switchel, which is kind of like an electrolyte replacement beverage that they used to use for out in the fields. And so I've had that recipe that floats on our website, different variations depending on the teas. But she had taken that switchel and made ice cubes with it. And they were bright colors, and the flavor, it has apple cider vinegar in it, so really, and lemon, which is really good for digestion. So with a meal is lovely. So at the table, she had these beautiful ice cubes into a regular glass of water. Well, what she had cultivated by choosing different ways to use these teas through the meal was this love just kind of kept wrapping around the meal, which she already had love in the cooking she was doing. But then she also transformed the experience of being at the table. And I think people forget about that. They sit down to the table and it's like, let's eat, instead of, what is it like? Do we have a candle burning? Do we have flowers at the table? Did we put out a placemat? Do we have napkins? Do we have a napkin that's a cloth napkin? Do we have, things, utensils in our kitchen? With lots of things where I like to hold things. So it's ceramic, or I have china from my great grandmother, or I have silverware, certain kinds of spoons to put in different kinds of pickle dishes or things. But really taking that time, instead of just putting that meal on your plate, but actually taking the time to put that whole piece together. And it's just so interesting how we can weave your architecture, right? Weave that architecture through the day of what is it you really want, and how do you want to be experiencing every moment, and not just relying on what happens in a busy life with a schedule and what you have to accomplish and finish.
Yeah. But even, just take your favorite spoon, pick it, and use it to eat your breakfast or your soup or fork. And be a very quick thing, or make sure you have your favorite pencil or pen in your hand that really writes smoothly. It's about allowing ourselves to again make ourselves comfortable, feel good, see our own beauty and the beauty in whatever we use, because it's here for us. And someone has put so much love and thought in it, and you can sense it if there was not put a lot of love and thought put in something that we go out and share. And trust that to choose those things that enrich your life, and rich, because that brings lightness. And so not lightness as just light, that brightness and that comes, that feeds us and everything else, but also the lightness of weight. It dissolves this weight that is pushing us down, that is pushing us over, we crunch over, and you do so much with movement, right? So that we can stand upright and straight or sit, relax. And if you feel good and you feel the love for what, it's hard for me to pick up my beautiful cup crunched over. It's a totally different feeling if I'm sitting relaxed and I'm happy, and the shoulders, they hang then to the side a little bit by themselves, and the back falls back. And then I pick up, right? And then I taste. There's a totally different taste. I invite everyone to try that. Drink something in different positions, in a different way of being. Take a second to really sense yourself. Are you who you are? And I talk about alignment, right? Connected to the skies, or connected to the ground, forever who you want to be connected, or that connected to your partner, on the table of your child, and then drink.
And as you did that, and I was bringing the mug to me, it's not that I really changed my posture all that much just because of the way I'm sitting for the podcast, but I actually smelled the tea before I tasted the tea. And I think a lot of times we just wait for the taste, and we just don't really open up that
Good
sense
point.
of smell, right? And so that was interesting, because just that little transformation of suggestion was enough for me to transform that. And I was just thinking, as you were talking about the end of the day, and I was thinking about what you said about people not being hugged enough. And I'm looking at my couches, which, everybody can hardly wait at the end of the day to settle into the couch to get all crunched up and feel the hug, right? And then you get there and you can't get back out. And
then you just stay there.
Right?
Until you want.
And that becomes your binge watching of a show. And it's not really even the content of the show that's so important, as much as what is your physical body being provided by being surrounded by that couch. And for a lot of people, that's when the comfort foods also join in, because that's more of that hug that you're looking for. So I was just reflecting on that, thinking, wouldn't it be a different day if you thought about how you wanted to finish your day being hugged? Not necessarily by your couch, because now that has such a weird thought pattern in it. I'll go get that hug from my couch. But could I get my hug from an activity I want to do, or picking up my paints, or writing a little bit? For those people that maybe haven't done reflective work, or even just writing some of the things you're grateful for the end of the day, that's a nice way to add that hug in. Anyway, I'm just open to any other ideas you have.
The warmth bottle where you put hot water in, and and you put it on your chest, on your stomach. You feel maybe on your neck, or you lean against this warmth. Maybe you're lucky like me. I have a cat at night. She comes.
Yes.
Or I take a nap, she's right there. But nowadays she prefers a little bit more to be with my son. There's something going on between those two. And but you have a fireplace right behind you, Michelle. So this warmth, a heating blanket, a blanket, envelop yourself. This provides something for you. During the daytime, if you want to be enveloped, sit in the sun we're so made afraid of the sun, but you know, maybe the skin cancer, but for a little bit you can, and feel it, how it envelops you, go into communication, because notice how beautifully you can relax. The sun is really important for us human beings. It gives us extreme wisdom, and then you can connect to all other suns, but if you at least use ours, there is something special. You can sense how you drop into yourself right away. You have an exhale, your heart goes into a slower rhythm. When you acknowledge and become aware of the sun, even if it's shining somewhere in the back through the window just before it sets. And I was talking about my cat, my Puccini, he wakes me up in the morning whenever the sun rises. But I go back to bed most of the time, especially in the summer because it's 4 o'clock. But I go outside with him and I welcome the sun, and there is this other energy. You can hear all the birds, they're much louder, and once the sun is there, it gets quieter, right? There's this beautiful symphony of life, and the cat is really accustomed to it. And she always wakes me up to mind, you do have to get up for this, because I like to stay up late. And when the world is sleeping, that's when I become creative. And I love sitting on my couch, and I do that. That's my office often. And again, there, you know, when we want to write, when we want to paint, we can move with it during the day. We don't have to be always in the same spot. I go sometimes where the sun is. I write, then move my chair right against the window in the winter, go outside, write there, or read, or whatever I need to do. And yeah, to be flexible, because Michelle, we're beings that are supposed to be flexible, and cultures have, not cultures, people have made us inflexible so we can be controlled and feel numbed. And the more we become, again, movable, and you said that when you feel yourself, you don't also use these nourishments, comfort food, because you don't need them. Less and less. Sometimes, yes, you need some emotional, an idea comes back, and memory. Please go ahead and use comfort food. I do that myself, and maybe sometimes then it's just a tea or a beautiful cake. Sometimes I get cake and put that all my love into my own cake, and then I eat it. It's like I give my love to myself. But that we notice then in the moments when we feel better, and we choose something different that makes us more movable, and pick up these little moments that create more movement. You start dancing more, you know, you bring so much ideas to your listener of what movements to do, loosen them up to feel own energy again. And this is also, I believe, important that we do that and really nudge ourselves a little bit more this year, this time, to find out how do we love to move, what is our own life rhythm, like even when do we love to go to bed, when do you love to eat, not, you know, the 12 to 1 lunch and then you, I don't know, 6 to 8 you have dinner. When does your body want to eat, and how much, and even what? And even when you go shopping, to choose that, let your hand choose, your body choose. And you can get this flexibility, put the music on and feel how your body moves. Not do, maybe you can start also with a certain dance style, but then also sometimes try just to stand there until your body swings into its own rhythm and starts moving you, and just follow it. It helps too.
It's interesting because you just provided that permission for yourself, right? Somebody says, you know, I don't feel like eating lunch at this time, but I need to eat lunch at this time. But if you decide to go for a walk because it's lunch break, and then you have something at your desk that you snack on later because that's when you really feel like you need the nourishment, then that permission to say, oh, I recognize that pattern, and it's okay to have that pattern, and I can I can adjust what I'm doing. Yeah, it's beautiful just to have that awareness and bring it in. And then people, thinking about, well, I'm not intuitive. You're intuitive, but I'm not intuitive. So everybody's intuitive. It's just, what do you do with that information when it comes to you? Do you block it, turn it off, and not recognize it? Or do you recognize it, but then choose the opposite? Or do you start to pull it in and go, what is it trying to tell me? And now what does that mean in my decision to do something? And I think all of us could say that at the end of the day, when we're trying to decide after supper, what are we going to do next? And the first thought goes to, oh, I could watch that TV show, and then I can go to the couch. Or, I haven't moved all day. It would be really fun to put on some music while I'm doing the dishes and let the movements pull me somewhere, and then see what you decide you want to do. And you might decide, I don't really feel like sitting down to watch a show right now. Now I feel like I want to go and maybe do a workout, or maybe for me, it's usually Tai Chi. So I'm doing something relaxing, but still engaging everything. Or you sit down and say, I'm going to call a friend. And instead of having something talk to me through a TV, I'm going to actually talk to someone else and make that connection, instead of leaving them on that list of, I haven't had time to get to them yet, and you make the time to bring those people forward and create conversation.
For us women, it's important to speak. Our hormones change if we speak and exchange and share. Men don't need that so much. It's different. But for us, the oxytocin goes up. If you're lucky, you have a child on your breast. But if you don't, you can do nesting and clean up of the whole house. At least dance then. While you vacuum out, while you do the dishes and sing on the way down to the washing machine. Yeah, and to brighten your day. Yes, to speak with friends, to speak with people you go out in the bakery, put a smile on their face, put a smile on your face, and normally then on everyone else's face who's standing in line. Yeah, to communicate. And that's so important, because the more we share, and even you were speaking about the lunch and you say you want to go walk, the more you share why you do certain things with your colleagues, with your family, with your friends, they understand you, the easier it becomes also then for you to follow your own rhythm, to become more aware of what you're nudged to. So that frees up over time. And it's step by step, as we step into that light, it's a step by step. Yeah, it's sometimes, yes, it can be a big thing, but nowadays everything is going to be gentle. We're going to gently experience more of us, not forceful. With softness comes, and just breathing in the beauty of yourself, of your home, of your surrounding, of your landscape, of other people.
Yeah. Oh, it feels lovely, doesn't it?
Yes.
Oh, this has been such a lovely conversation, and I know we could keep going. It's always hard to rein in the podcast and bring it back so people can reflect on what we've said so far and see how they decide to illuminate their heart, see how they might decide to illuminate others just by the gestures that they put in. Have you got some kind of movement piece that you'd like to share with the audience before we finish?
Yes. It's easy. I don't know. You put your hand in front of your belly. Hand depends if you're left or right, or you can switch that too. And you start moving a spiral. And as you do a spiral, and your spiral gets bigger as your arm and hand is moving upward in front of your body. And okay, I'm doing sitting down now. And then you're over your head, and really you do a big spiral, and you notice, especially if you've been doing it standing up, when you can lower your hand and start moving up again, or you can go the other direction with the spiral, is your body starts moving. Maybe at the beginning it's the hand, but as you start moving your own energy through your body and inviting it to play with you, and then suddenly you have the whole world's energy with you playing in your surrounding. And then chuck, I always think about, you know, the Spaniards, the Sevilla, the oh, what's the word? They go and say click, right? They throw their hand up. So, and then at the end, throw your energy out into the world. It's like, it's me and I'm here with all of you. It gives a little something.
That just feels so wonderful. Everything just kind of always think of the energy feels like bubbly, I guess is the best way to describe that. And then just
bubbly, it's important.
Yeah, just to feel that. But here we are at the end, and I, you know, I was feeling good because of our conversation and our connection and everything we've talked about. But now that little vibrancy is just illuminated, and you can, it's holding the space. That's a beautiful, beautiful, easy piece. Yeah, yeah. You mentioned a couple of times the work that I do with dance, but also with the feet. And what I had thought about too was I originally started when I went back to school and started going, what is most important to me? It's always been the feet. And I think that's because my injuries and losing the ability to walk, the feet became my center focus, because once they felt better, then I could move better everywhere else. So I had the Feet First system, which is a foot rub, but I also had a section on my YouTube channel called Toe Tips. And I don't remember how many are there. There must be over 50, I think, of ways to connect with the feet. But as you were talking about grounding or stability, and you talked a little bit about gravity as well, and feeling the heaviness that can come through, when we play with the feet in different ways, we actually can take those reflexes for gravity and grounding, and we can enlighten them, we can repattern them. So I would invite people to, even just if you're putting music on, tap your toe, the most basic. Just that toe tap is going to energize. And we add that to your spirals, and we've got a whole other thing that can happen. And stepping on the feet different ways. So you're not always stepping flat. Some ball of the foot. Maybe you put your heel with a little bit of an accent, and that becomes foot percussion, which leads to the tap dancing, which leads to step dancing. But it's just such an easy thing to change the way you step upon your feet. So that's what I would
as you're
share.
talking, I had to look down to my feet and notice how they changed. I became aware of my feet, and they just expanded a little bit and touched more of the ground, of the bottom.
Oh, beautiful. That is so interesting. And as you saying that, I'm thinking about people listening, if they start to think about what people are saying to them, how their body is responding.
Beautiful.
And then, because just for me to suggest feet, because we didn't do anything, but have your feet immediately engage, and then think about people who have that sore back, or they've been sitting at the computer too long and their neck hurts. And then you're talking to someone and you notice your posture starts to shift a little bit. And all of a sudden the tension in the neck has disappeared. Then to realize that how that connection does transform you, and intuitively your body is already connecting to what is going on around you. Yeah. Wow. Thank you for a lovely discussion today. My goodness.
This was beautiful, Michelle. Thank you for having me.
Would you like to share with everyone how they can find you and access your resources, your podcast, your radio show?
Yeah, my name is everywhere. I mean, it's easy. My website, it's called meilinehlke.com, and Meilin Ehlke is on Facebook, on all social, even YouTube, you can find it this way, and it's spelled Meilinehke. And yeah, and the podcast, thank you for letting me voice, that's called Moving to Oneness. So type it in whatever platform you love to listen in on, or go to YouTube. I have there all as a video as well, because there's some fantastic people, and the energy to just be balsamed by their energy as we're talking about. Yeah, so, and all will support you in becoming who you are, and you are able then to live your life, to dictate what you desire, and see that you are part of everything existing, and you're not separate, and no one else is bigger or better than you are. We're all very important, beautiful beings, and have a purpose of being at this time on this beautiful planet.
That's a lovely way to close. Thank you so much.
Thank
Beautiful.
you, Michelle.
You've been listening to Be Well with Michelle Greenwell, and this episode has been sponsored by Dance Debut, providing movement programs to create a flourishing lifestyle for achieving your goals and ambitions and enjoying the activities on your bucket list. Also by the Cape Breton Tea Company, bring a little of your countryside and hospitality into your day with a luxurious cup of the tastes and sounds of Cape Breton. Cape Breton Tea Company is cbtcompany.square.site, and Dance Debut Inc. Is where you can find resources, workshops, presentations that ignite the passion for living through wellness and movement tips and tools. Have a beautiful day and make it what you want it to be. Thank you so much, Meilin. Oh my goodness.
Thank you, Michelle. And everyone, have a beautiful day, night, and a beautiful year.